Man, how are you doing today, my friend? It's take two. We messed up take one. How's your day going, my friend?
No worries. All good. Yeah, my day's going good. Just enjoying the day off. It's a day off here from school, and honestly, it's my birthday today, so I'm having a good day.
Oh, happy birthday. What a coincidence.
Yeah, thanks.
What?
55. I'm getting old.
No, man. You've got the energy of a 30-year-old, though. You, one thing that we've always talked about is just like how much energy and how positive you are, which we really appreciate. Before we get started,
Yeah,
Lowell, you
thanks.
mind sharing with the audience a little bit about your background, who you are, what you do, how you found us, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, so I guess I just dropped the ball that I'm 55 now, but I'm an educator. I'm 27 years as a teacher, and now I'm an associate principal at a high school here in Sammamish outside of Seattle. Married, wonderful wife who's struggling with breast cancer treatment. She's gone through chemo, surgery, radiation, and done with the heavy lifting, and now just on immunotherapy. Doing well. All signs point to positive treatment success. I've got a son who's 23, just graduated college, about to become a kindergarten or first grade teacher. I've been an athlete my whole life, but suffered from several injuries. I've kind of got problems with all of my joints all over, um, but I've kind of never let that get me down. Found Fit for Life, I think, just from seeing your social. Looking for evidence based. I'm a former chemistry teacher, so I love evidence. So I found evidence based uh, social media folks, found you, and um, I just was like very intrigued about what you post in terms of debunking the myths out there. And I think my first coaching with y'all was through the 21-day challenge that you did in October.
Mhm.
And that was how I dipped into it and then went all in after that. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And I think your story is really empowering, Lowell, because it's a perfect example of even when life is hard, there's still things that are within our control and things that we can focus on, right? And part of that comes
Yeah.
down to developing the right habits. Part of that comes down to having the right mindset. I know you shared just a second ago that your wife is going through treatment for cancer, and I'm happy to hear that things are moving in the right direction as well. When we
Yeah.
first started
Thanks.
working together, things were you were in a more difficult situation than you are today, right?
I
Uh,
was.
do you
Yeah.
mind sharing about where you were, what sort of difficulties you were going through? Obviously, to the degree that you feel comfortable sharing, but even more importantly, how you were still able to make the decision to prioritize your health and fitness.
Yeah, when I joined you all in October for the fitness challenge, and that's when it was more than just the social media interactions, if you will. And it was in the middle of her chemotherapy, and chemo is hard. It's
Yeah.
poison. I mean, that's really what it is. It's poison meant to kill the cancer cells. Unfortunately, it affects the entire body. I was off work at the time. I got a ton of support from my school and my school district to take time off. I took 6 months off to care for her during chemo, and it was really difficult. I have a really great collection of family and friends here, but when I joined the 21-day fitness challenge, I also found a collection of people online who were willing to inspire me with their efforts to take care of themselves, um, and also to support me through challenges. Um, and I think in terms of, you asked about prioritizing, that was hard too. The one thing that was positive in terms of taking care of myself was Devin slept a lot. My wife Devin slept a lot because of her treatment just exhausting. And so when she would sleep, I would plan my meals. As I learned more tools about meal planning, I'd plan my meals. I would work out. Um, the I just I had to be available for her. So sometimes my workout would be interrupted, and I'd go take care of Devin, and no problem. That's what I'm here for. Um, but I would work out when she was sleeping, and that turned out to be okay. I had to take care of myself in order to take care of her, but it was
Mhm.
stressful, um, and I think the biggest help for me was mindset shifting. I used to call myself an emotional eater, and I was going through one of the most stressful times of my life.
Mm,
And that would have been just a recipe for disaster for emotionally eating. And
yeah,
I learned from all the work I did with Coach Sessi initially, and then from all of you, Coach Bernardo and Coach Mom and you, I really learned about shifting my mindset. If I label myself an emotional eater, I'm an emotional eat. But if I label myself a healthy eater and I have some emotional eating, I can look at it from a little bit more objective lens, like, okay, I just had a little sidestep here. I'm going to bring it back because I'm a healthy eater now. And it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. And that mindset shift really helped ground me, I think, in
yeah.
better practices. I think that's probably the best way to describe that.
Yeah, and you mentioned, you have to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of your wife, and I think that's a
Yeah.
very um, wise way of putting it. And I totally agree, right? However, Lowell, one thing
Yeah.
I've realized is when people are going through a difficult or stressful time, whether it's taking care of your wife or taking care of parents or being a parent and having little kids, I realize sometimes people feel a ton of guilt taking time to prioritize themselves because they feel like they need to give
Yeah.
every single second of their being towards helping that particular person. Which, as I'm
Yeah.
sure you would agree, probably isn't the healthiest or best way to actually do so, right? I guess my question is, how were you able to develop that perspective?
I think it took it. It's a that's layered in terms of how I was able to get there. I think one layer is a little bit of a cliche, but you go on an airplane flight. What do they tell you if you have children with you? They say in an emergency, put on your oxygen mask before you help your child,
Yeah,
because if you pass out, you can't help your child. And that's a little bit cliched, but that people reference that kind of jokingly with me. I had friends tell me you got to take care of yourself first so that you can take care of Devin. I have a wife who we're a partnership. We've been together 25 years and we're a partnership. And so she encouraged me actually to take care of myself. And of course,
that's
it
great.
was always open communication. Open communication. Hey, I'm about to work out, but if you need me, just holler, and I'll stop. I would work out in the house, so I paused my gym membership because my gym is 15 minutes away. Um, so, and also we were trying to reduce respiratory infections. My wife is prone to
Mhm,
respiratory infection, so I didn't do much outside. So I set up a little home gym, and I would work out right here in my little living room. And so because of the open communication, and because I probably invested $150 in some
mhm,
kettlebells and some mats, and I created a space. I couldn't do everything. I couldn't do leg
yeah,
press. Leg press is my favorite. I couldn't do it, but I found other things to do, and it was worth it because of that. And I think all of those things that come into fit for life. I get encouragement from the community to take care of myself so that I could be there for my wife.
yeah,
So it's layered. Um, Supportive friends, communication between me and my wife, and supporting of each other. All those things I think combined so that I was able to have that. Uh,
yeah,
I would say relatively guilt free. There's always a sense of guilt, like, am I doing enough to care for my
yeah,
wife? But in the end, I did my best every day. I had a couple days that were imperfect, but every day
sure,
I did my best, and it worked out. Yeah.
yeah. And do you feel like prioritizing yourself and working out and focusing on eating healthy and feeling good overall expanded your capacity to be an effective caretaker, to handle stress, to manage those situations?
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't I would go for walks sometimes around my neighborhood, but I would keep the distance pretty close in case I needed to come back. So I was no more than like 5 minutes away. But
Mhm.
that and working out, walking, those things are so good for my mental health. They're um not almost like therapy. And I don't want to diminish real therapy. I've got close family and friends who have gone
Yeah,
through therapy for real, but for me, it's a form of meditation, perhaps, where you're just taking care of yourself and it just feels good. The endorphins start rolling from working out. You hit a PR or you do, you get that burn from the RDLs with the kettlebell or whatever, and it just feels good. So yeah, there's no doubt that those moments when I was taking care of myself made it easier to take care of Devin for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy you shared that, Lowell. You know, even the concept that you mentioned, like I don't want to diminish the benefits of traditional therapeutic modalities, but um, I do think that exercise and self care is a form of therapy for sure,
Hmm.
right? And I've seen a lot of
Yep.
people on
Yep.
social media also diminish um, like fitness people when they're like, exercise is great for your mental health. For me, it's a form of therapy. Like going to the gym is my form of therapy. And I've seen people diminish that almost as a like discrediting the benefits of exercise for mental health. And I couldn't
Right.
disagree more with that. I also think, listen, different people respond to different forms of therapy, and some things are stress
100%.
relievers for some people and not others. But even
Yep.
myself, man, I find myself like, I can't tell you how many times I go for a walk, Lowell, and in my own neighborhood, I will catch myself and stop myself and be like, whoa, where am I? Because I literally get lost, right? Like
Yeah.
I get lost
Yeah.
in my own thoughts, thinking about work, thinking about stuff with family. And like, it's such a good way to manage stress. Um, yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's totally a way to manage stress. And I think this is one of those areas where nuance matters. Both things can be true.
Mm,
Exercise can be great for mental health, and yet for some people, real intense therapy might be necessary. Both of those can
yeah,
be true. And why can't that be part of a conversation? It doesn't have to be this all or nothing, or that's I think that's one of the problems with social media now is it's not made for nuanced people don't allow it to be nuanced conversations. It can be, but not everybody engages in those conversations that are nuanced and full of the detail that really matters.
yeah, completely agree there. It's hard to be nuanced in a 1 minute video as well. Um,
Yeah.
so it's also the format of the type of information that's being put out. But anyways, what
Yeah.
one thing I really wanted to ask too, Lowell, is before we started working together, what were
Hmm.
some of your biggest struggles when it came to health and fitness? You mentioned that you used to be an athlete, you've experienced a number of
Yeah.
injuries. Where were you
Yeah.
back then?
Yeah. I would say biggest struggles for me has always been food. I love to eat. And that's something I'm still willing to say, even with shifting my mindset away from labels like emotional eater. I still love to eat and I'm okay with that. Um, I struggled with eating too much, overweight. I definitely carry too much weight. I still do, but I'm less than I was before overall. In terms of training, I've been, some form of cardio and strength training my whole life, and as long as I can remember, since high school at least. But I've never been in a program where I was really deliberate about what I was doing. It was a lot more just trying to do my best. I know cardio is good for me. I know strength training is good for me, but I never really had a focus. Um, and so it's a hit and miss, and then I'd have an injury and I'd have surgery and I'd stop for 6 months or whatever because I couldn't I can't do weight bearing for 6 weeks and then had to recover. And so I would say it's just been this up and down my whole life, and limited mobility in some areas. My left knee, I can't bend all the way. So I can't do like a deep squat. But I'm working on that mobility. Like I use bands to try to increase that mobility so that I can get more range of motion because range of motion is important.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I think I'm rambling a little bit on my answer, but my journey has been quite all over the place. And I've done so many different things in my life, hiking, mountain biking, rock climbing, just pick up basketball, tennis, all those things. I don't do as many of those things now as I used to, but I still do things
Mm,
I love. I still go out hiking. That's my joy. Finding the mountains and hiking is my joy. Um,
yeah.
and I find that um, the strength training. So I'm in a little tangent here. Like um, in March of this year, so here I get a little story. In March of this year, I climbed the Columbia Center in Seattle for the Big Climb, which raises money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I had a sister who passed away from leukemia 3 years ago. And so every year I do the big climb. And last year I trained for it on the Stairmaster at the gym, and I found some stairs locally, and I trained for months to get ready to climb 1,311 stairs. Well, this year I was taking care of my wife. So I did not get to use the Stairmaster. I did not get to use the stairs nearby. I got to walk a little bit, and I got to strength train using some kettlebells, and that was it. And luckily, her health had improved enough so that I did the big climb this year, but I didn't do hardly any official training.
Mhm.
But I did programming from Fit for Life from Coach Bernardo. I did the programming, and I went up 2 minutes faster than last year.
Dude,
Um,
that's awesome.
so it was just a little bit of an example for me of when I have focused training that includes strength training, even if I can't do my favorite, it works. So yeah, I think joining Fit for Life was the first official training I'd ever done in any, and Fit for Life is one of those things that's not just a personal trainer at the gym. It's not just nutrition. It's not just mindset coaching. It's kind of everything. But the actual fitness training that Coach Bernardo gave me, I was ready to climb those stairs, even if I did no specific training for the stairs like I did last year. And that felt so awesome.
Yeah. That's super, super cool, and it just highlights the importance of, like, being strong, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes.
being strong is is an adaptation that, like, has so much carryover to other things in life.
Hmm.
Even sometimes, Lowell, when people, for example, if you go up 2 or 3 flights of stairs and you're out of breath, oftentimes people think it's because they have bad cardio, and oftentimes it's because you
Yep.
have weak
Not
muscles,
strong
and
enough.
just having stronger
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, like, strength is so,
Yep.
so important. Um,
Yep.
I really wanted to ask Lowell about the food component, right? Because you mentioned that this has
Hmm.
been your biggest challenge so far.
Yep.
You always,
Excuse me.
labeled yourself as an emotional eater. You mentioned that mindset around how you label yourself and how you view yourself has been a really big, benefit to help you regulate your
Yeah.
food intake. I guess the question I wanna ask
Yes.
is, what have been the biggest lessons or habits that you've learned and implemented thus far that have helped you with your eating behaviors?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably talk an hour about that. I think the short answer is two things in my mind. I had started heavier protein before I came to Fit for Life, just from learning from others, but I
Yeah.
hadn't started more fiber
Mm.
and really thinking about satiety and eating as fuel, to eating to fuel my body and eating to be satiated. I'd never really thought about that. And I'd
Yeah.
heard the term and I knew fiber was good for me, but I'd never put it together to really think about creating a meal that will leave me feeling fulfilled so that I don't need to eat again for 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Because I
Yeah.
don't buy the notion that you should eat 18 times a day to fuel your metabolism. I don't buy that.
Nobody has time for
Um,
that.
yeah, but I do buy the notion that if I plan my meals for the day, when I plan my meals, and whether I'm counting my macros or counting calories or not, if I plan my meals for the day, it's almost this relief of I think food noise is a real thing for me. But when I had time to plan my meals every day, the food noise got less and less, and it was just like, okay, now it's breakfast. I'm gonna eat breakfast. I'm done. Okay, I've got a plan. I'm gonna eat lunch at about this time. And I do my thing. And then that time rolls. Okay, now it's lunch. And so number one was really planning and thinking about protein and fiber at every meal. I was already in the protein, but I wasn't thinking about satiety in that idea. And then the second part of it I've mentioned already is mindset. Really thinking about, for example, Coach Sessi during the 21-day challenge, one of the things I admitted to her is I have a habit of watching sport. I love sports. Watching sports means finding some chips and dip or some
Yeah.
cookies or some crackers or some anything. And she challenged me to think about not, she's like, just try the next time you watch a hockey game, don't eat. and I didn't. And this I just enjoyed the game. I didn't eat snacks that day. And that life went on. Like it was mind blowing that I didn't have to eat to watch
Yeah.
hockey. I could just watch the hockey and enjoy it. And so she got me to really think about what are the triggers and why are they there and are they real? Um, and I guess I'm going to add one more little thing, and that came from Brent. It's like if you want to eat something, ask yourself some questions. Am I really hungry, or is it a habit, or am I masking something else? I need 10 minutes of meditation, or just calming myself to set things aside. Um, so all those things combined have really helped me think much more about my 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 nutrition. Yeah, it made a huge
Yeah.
difference.
You
Yeah.
brought up some really, really great points. And I think people listen, the reason why some people overeat more than others is so multifaceted, right? This is
Yes.
another thing that bothers me where people are like, it's this one thing, it's that one thing. I see a lot on social media. It's like, you're overeating because you're hungry. And it's like, no, we don't just eat because we're hungry. Like, there are so many reasons as to why people decide to eat or not to eat, right? And I think you mentioned on some of the biggest ones, Lowell. First and foremost, when it comes to diet, most people quote unquote go on a diet. They just like
Yeah.
think about cutting out food, right? And we've
Yeah.
talked about this a ton. Like restriction is not the right perspective because it's not
No.
gonna be sustainable, right? You have to focus on what you're adding to your diet in order to help you feel full, in order to help you reduce your caloric intake. Protein and fiber are definitely the most beneficial things. Focusing on whole foods overall, even if they're nutritionally. I don't know if you've seen me share this. There's really cool research that even if the nutritional profile is the same, let's say protein, fiber, calories, whatever, the degree of
Yeah.
processing also impacts how much we eat. So even if you eat highly processed foods and it has the same amount of protein, the same amount of fiber, you will
Yeah.
eat more of it compared to whole foods, right? So just focusing on whole
Yeah.
foods, that's a big reason. You also mentioned the mindset piece. I've had this conversation with so many clients before, and this story always comes to mind when I talk about this. I used to
Yeah.
work with a client who, man, he really, really wanted to prioritize his health. He had a
Hmm.
little daughter. He wants to be a good example for her. He's still
Hmm.
around, so I'm going to talk about him in present tense. He wants to
I
be a good
love it. That's
example
good.
for her, and he just like fell into this cycle where he would self sabotage every single weekend. And it was
Hmm.
like, "What's going on, man?" Because he had no problem throughout the week. He was doing really well. He's like, "Man, well, my wife and I, we hang out with our group of friends, and they always want to go to a bar. And then I tell
Yeah.
myself I'm going to have just, one drink or whatever, and I'm going to regulate my eating. And then I have a couple drinks, and then when I'm feeling tipsy or whatnot, like I don't have any self control, and I overeat, and it happens like every single weekend." And I'm like,
Hmm.
dude, like you are self sabotaging. Either have a conversation with your friends, either really think about why you're doing the things that you're doing. But it's like, that's not because of hunger, right? That's essentially
Right.
the identity
No.
he's built around these behaviors on the weekend. It's like, I am somebody who goes with my friends and drinks on the weekend and then overeats. It's like, you
Yeah.
don't have to be that person at all. And I
Yeah.
think the third reason, Lowell, is mindlessness. How many of us
Yeah.
just snack
Oh,
because we're just
that's
snacking? It's so
huge.
easy,
Yep.
right? And what I think really helps there,
Huge.
Lowell, is creating awareness around your mindless eating behaviors, right? Because like you mentioned that
Yep.
like I'm watching sports and I just overeat. I
That's right.
realize like your food environment is super important. Like if I
Yes.
try to intentionally put all food away in the pantry, because if I'm cooking in the kitchen and there's cookies next to me, I'm just gonna have the
Yep.
cookies and I'm not gonna think
Yeah.
about it. If the cookies are simply put
Yeah.
away in the pantry, I'm probably not gonna eat them. So
Easier.
like simple little things like that make such a big impact.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely did make some changes to the food environment. I was doing the shopping for the family while taking care of my wife, and I just stopped buying a lot of those. Excuse me, a lot of the snacks that I used to buy, and it was really interesting. I felt empowered actually by
Mhm.
this conversation and learning. I felt empowered because often in my past, if I was doing the shopping, an extra bag of cookies would end up in the cart because I'm the one shopping. Hey, those cookies, they're on sale. They're good. I'm going to have some. I was
Yeah.
shopping and yet I was not engaging in some of these behaviors that I used to because I felt empowered to impact my environment. And
Yeah.
I think all of that combined to just lead to, even while I was going through one of the most stressful periods of my life, because of all of the things I was trying to do to help myself, it made a difference. Now, I'm not perfect still, and I don't ever plan to be perfect because that's unattainable, but I can be consistent and I can show up as every day for myself and I can think every day, how did that go? Oh, I blew up today. I'm back at it tomorrow. Or even, oh, that breakfast was horrible. I'm going to make lunch better rather than giving up the whole day. If I mess up breakfast, I I used to be like, oh, I messed up breakfast. I may as well enjoy lunch. Dinner's
Yeah.
going to be awesome. I'm going to have some ice cream too. Now
Yeah.
it's, I messed up breakfast. Okay, lunch is going to be better.
Yeah.
So all
Yeah.
of
And
that
even like
combined, but
the
just
idea,
feeling empowered.
yeah. See, even the mindset of like thinking I messed up a meal is like something I go back and forth on. I don't even necessarily agree with because
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you didn't mess up. You're just human. You just had a little bit of something else, right?
yeah,
And instead of thinking, because so many people think that way too, Lowell, where it's like I screwed up breakfast. Like, what's the point? Lunch and dinner, let's go overboard. That turns into a day, turns into a week, turns into a month. Like it's very
yes,
common.
yes, yes,
But the funny thing is, you could think about it a little bit differently. And it's not even about just, I screwed up breakfast. Let me get right back on track. I think a bit about it in this way. I'm like, okay, if I allocated more food towards the morning, then I need to be a little bit stricter with lunch and stay consistent,
hmm,
right? Like you mentioned about consistency, but like, man,
yeah,
the mindset and the
yeah,
way you view things is so important. Even the concept of feeling empowered, though. One thing that I like to talk about often is regardless of the way you put it, like when you go on a diet, if you're trying to lose weight, etc., some restrictions have to be made, right? Some changes have to be made,
100%.
some sacrifices
Yep,
have to be made.
indeed.
However, I think the way we frame those sacrifices and restrictions really, really matters. And here's what I mean.
Yeah,
Like I mentioned earlier, approaching nutrition from the perspective of like just restricting is not good, right? We should focus on
yeah,
what we need to be eating more of, but also the mindset of like, I can't eat this, I can't eat that isn't helpful. But there's a fine balance
yeah,
because some people are like, I know I shouldn't say I can't eat that, which means that I should have it. And it's like, maybe you should limit it, but how do we approach that in a healthy way? And what I think is really helpful is telling yourself it's not that you can't have that food, is that you are intentionally choosing to limit the consumption of that food because the goals that you're
hmm,
working on are more important. And that puts you in the
yep,
driver's seat versus putting you at the mercy of, you know, how you're being marketed to by different food companies and what's available and what's not. It really is
yeah,
empowering.
yeah. Yeah, and empowering is such a cool word. The idea that I can have, I'm going to read the package, and it says one serving is 120 calories, and oh, that sounds awesome. Oh, one serving is two cookies. All right, I'm going to have two cookies, because I'm going to enjoy them, and then I'm going to move on. If I say I'm never going to have something again, all it does is make me want that thing more, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, restriction is more about moderation. I think is the word I like to use for myself. Is it's about moderation. It's not about never. Um,
Yeah.
and consistency over perfection is another one of those sort of key phrases. It sounds cliche, but it's not cliche in this case. It's
Yeah.
truly meaningful to think about consistency instead of aiming for something that is unattainable.
Yeah. And I would like to add to that what I mentioned too of like the mindset of it's changing the wording from I can't to I'm choosing to not, right? Uh,
Yes,
a,
yes,
a personal example, when I was younger, I would often drink in social situations way too much. And it wasn't even because I liked drinking, it's because like I felt like I was missing out if
yeah,
other people were drinking and I wasn't.
yeah,
And alcohol has never really agreed with my body. Like I always feel really bad after I drink. I get really bad stomach
mhm,
pain. I feel horrible, not just for a day, but for multiple days. And because of
yeah,
that, I've pretty much like kind of fully given up drinking. I may have like one drink at the very most. And I say that
mhm,
because I live in Tampa. My wife's entire family lives here, and my wife's like
mhm,
side of the family definitely likes to drink socially. And whenever we go over to their house or there's events, which pretty much is every weekend, if not every other weekend, people are drinking. And it's always the like, oh, Joey, have a drink. Here, have this. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. And
Yeah.
when I was younger, I would feel like if I said, nah, I'm good, it was, I'm missing out and I'm doing it because I can't do it. But now I really have the mindset of like, I'm intentionally choosing not to drink because I know how it makes me feel. I am in power.
Yeah.
I'm making this decision. And it makes it so
Yeah.
much easier. And not just so much easier, it makes me feel good about my decision as well, right? Because I think that's another
Yeah.
important component is like actually feeling good and confident in your decisions.
I think that's a huge part of it is it's your choice. It's not being
Yeah,
mandated to you, or it's not it's your choice, and it's because you're making something better for yourself. I also really believe I don't drink. I chose to stop drinking when I was going to become a teacher. I wanted to be a role model for my students. And so I just chose to stop drinking when I was in grad school. And
cool.
all my friends I went to a friend's bachelor party, and it was a drinking event. I grew up in the country, so it was in a barn. Like I was drinking Seven Up all night, and all my friends. This was my first worry. Like, how am I going to be in this environment? My friends were like, "Yeah, you're good. I'm drinking Seven Up. It's all good." I found out, number one, I found out who my friends were because they didn't care that I wasn't drinking. They were supportive of me, and I found out that it didn't matter because it was my choice. So that was a lesson I learned a long time ago, but I never associated it with food, and I'm not sure
Mm,
why. Um, that's another thing that Trip for Life did for me with all the idea is I absolutely believe in a growth mindset. I'm an educator. Growth mindset is in our world, but I had never put myself into a growth mindset for food. And I don't know why. I just never had. And thinking about using these mindset ideas for myself in the nutrition environment really played a role in that as well.
yeah, that's super cool. Um, you even mentioned figuring out who your friends are, which I also think is an
Yeah.
important to talk about because sometimes those that are closest to us sabotage the things that we're trying to do, right? And I guess the question is, Lowell, how much
Yeah.
of an impact does your social circle have on your health and fitness?
Um, I would say, excuse me, I would say it's a mixed bag, but not in a negative way. Positive in terms of I've got friends who I go hiking with, for example. I got friends who I go
Mhm.
walking with. And rather than meeting for breakfast, we meet for a walk. And so
That's
that's
cool.
awesome. But I still have friends I go to, meals are just that social. I don't know the phrase, but meals are a real
Of
thing,
course.
right? When you want to meet your
Yeah.
friends, you go meet for dinner. That still
Yeah.
happens. And I accept that as part of being a wonderful connection to some wonderful friends. But I've got friends who want to go hiking. I've got friends who want to go for a walk. I've got friends I see at the gym. I think that connection, if you share your intention with others, it seems it's I don't know. There's uh, people want to cheer you on. People are like, "Oh yeah, you got
Yeah.
it, Lowell. I'm training to climb the stairs. You got this, Lowell. You can do this." Um, I think that the friends can really make a difference if you are open with your friends about what you're trying to do. Um,
Yeah.
if they're really your friends, they're going to support you. And then something that I had no clue would happen is I joined the 21 Day Fitness Challenge and then later joined the full coaching program. And there's this little community in Fit for Life that's the same thing. It's all about cheering each other on. It's all about learning from our mistakes and sharing our mistakes so that we can get encouragement to get back on track for whatever. Um, there's such power in community. I'm
Yeah.
blown away by that. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that is the reason we really focus on the community. Like for us, it's
yeah,
fun to be able to connect with the clients. But even
yeah,
beyond that, like it's so beneficial for the actual clients, right? And Lowell, it
yes,
sounds like, thankfully you have people close to you that really care about you and you have people who really positively impact your life.
yeah,
Not in my personal life, just working with so many clients at this point, I have
yeah,
seen the complete opposite time and time again, man. And it's
Yeah.
difficult, because when we talk about like nutrition, it's like, hey, let's eat healthy and let's do this and let's do that. But if the people closest to you in life are not allowing you to do
Mhm.
that or making it way more difficult, it makes it so much harder, man. Right. And I'm not here
It
to tell
does.
anybody like that your partner is a good partner or a bad partner, but like sometimes it's like, oh my God, man, the people closest to you are sabotaging you. I remember one client that I worked with over a decade ago now when I was working as a personal trainer, when I was in
Mhm.
graduate school, actually doing my master's. And man, I really developed a bond with this person. He was such a kind person, super sweet guy, and he had been struggling with his weight for so long. To put into context, I think he was around 440-ish pounds around there. And he would come to the
Yeah.
gym regularly, didn't miss a workout, was putting in the
Yeah.
effort. And it was really the
Yeah.
nutrition piece. And even though
Yeah.
I was a personal trainer, like I was getting my education in nutrition. So we would talk a lot about it. And,
Yeah.
we were working for months and like nothing was changing. And so I don't remember how the conversation even came up, but I think I probably asked him like, man, what is hard for you to make these changes? And he's like, man, my wife like doesn't support it at all. Um, my wife, like essentially, she cooks for the family. He would tell her she wanted to eat healthy. She wouldn't make any changes to what she was making. She would ridicule him for wanting to eat healthy. And I'm sure part of that is projecting her own insecurities on him. And like,
Mhm.
it's such a difficult situation. It's completely out of my scope. And like, I'm not gonna even touch that. Like, but it's like,
Right.
man, I'm
Right.
so sorry that that is your situation because that makes it
Yeah. Yeah.
exponentially more difficult, right?
Yes.
And
Oh,
then
I
there
can't
are simpler
imagine. I can't imagine.
yeah. Yeah. And then there's simpler situations like the one where I shared earlier where it's like the client that I was working with, his friends just wanted to go out drinking on the weekend. It's like, man,
Yeah.
you might just need a different social circle, right? With a lot of people who don't even really exercise regularly or focus on eating healthy, like I typically say the first step is just find a friend that likes working out and just hang out with them.
Yeah.
Like, don't even worry about thinking about like what you're
Yep.
gonna eat and what workouts you're gonna do. Just find a friend that likes exercising and go have a good time and move. And that'll cascade
Yeah.
into other healthy behaviors over time.
Yes. And accountability, if you have a workout buddy, let's meet at the gym at 8. 7:30 the alarm goes off. I'm tired. I'm gonna sleep in. Not if your buddy is at the gym waiting for you. You're gonna go do that. Um,
Yeah.
and that plays a big role. Absolutely. There's so many
Yeah.
levers. I think what you're getting at here is there are so many levers that can be pulled,
Mhm.
and it's hard as a human to pull them all at the same time. But if we can pull this lever right now, then I need the lever of having an accountability buddy. I need the lever of dialing in my meals so that they're more satiating. I need the lever of this. I need the lever of that. If we think about all the levers we've got, pull them when you need them. Um,
Yeah.
and sometimes we need more levers because life is crazy, and sometimes we need less levers, and that's just the way the world works. But I think that
Yeah.
that idea of levers is something to think about.
Yeah. And the funny part is, Lowell, that I feel like most people who start on this journey and they do things on their own, they focus on the levers that are the hardest to pull and don't have the biggest return on
Yeah,
investment, right?
yeah.
Like, I'm going to pull this lever of like not eating any carbs. In theory, would that have an impact? Yeah, it definitely would, right? But I say it's the
Yeah,
hardest to pull because, like, if you live in a household where you typically eat carbohydrates and you have kids and they like carbs, it's like you're going against one of the the hardest things to do, right? And then the other
that's
part of it
right.
is like it doesn't have that big of an impact. It may have an impact, but it's not going to have a massive impact. Whereas pulling the lever of just like putting yourself in an environment that's healthy, that's so much easier to do,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
and those
Well,
and people listening,
yeah.
they're like, well, I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the other thing is, I'm gonna work out 2 hours a day for 7 months, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna lose 50 pounds, and then I'll be fine. Well, no, the habits you build to lose the weight, for those of us that have body composition improvement needs, if I the things I have to do to get there are the things I'm gonna have to continue
yep,
indefinitely to stay healthy. So rather than thinking of it as a short term, I want to think of it as habits for a lifetime. And
yep,
it's got to be enjoyable, sure, but you really have to think about it. This isn't a 1 month fix. This isn't a 2 month fix. This isn't a 6 month fix. This is a lifetime.
yeah. Yeah, and the one thing I was to say, Lowell, is because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this might feel like, well, I don't have a friend that likes going to the gym. I don't, you know, like it's hard to find a social circle. This is my
Yeah.
number one hack for this. Go to a gym and do a group training class. Whether it's like
Yeah.
at 45 or like if your gym does group circuit classes, like do
Yep.
that. They're typically small circles, they're typically really inviting, and they're fun. And they're fun. I used
Yes.
to, when I was doing
Yes.
personal training, I would run a small little circuit class twice a week for like 30 minutes. And it was mainly, it's funny that it wasn't intentional, but the demographic was like, it was the same 6 or 7 women. They were between their
Hmm.
like mid 50s to like mid 60s.
Hmm.
And every once in a while, like a new lady in that age group would come in, and like they were always welcomed with open arms. They didn't know each other prior to the gym. They met each other just doing this little circuit class, and this person laughs because they can't do that. That it makes it fun.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then
Yep.
they would also like do stuff outside of the gym. Like they would go out for
Yeah.
meals or they would hang out. And it's like you build this small little community around
Yeah.
health that trickles down into all of your other behaviors, right? Because like here's the thing, it's like cutting out carbs, even though I don't agree with it. Like, could it be beneficial? Sure. But it's like so down the chain of like what's important.
Yes.
Whereas if you just focus with having a social environment, that's going to trickle down into your eating behaviors. It's going to trickle down to your
Yep.
consistency with exercise. It's going to make everything more enjoyable. It's going to have a much bigger impact overall. I'm happy that you
Yeah.
brought up the importance of having a positive social environment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's big. I'm also grateful. I mean, I think gratitude plays a role too. I'm grateful for everything
Yeah.
I've got, and it just makes it easier to. I'm grateful that I was able to create a home gym during the time when
Yeah.
I stayed home. Now I'm grateful that I can get back to the gym. Well,
Yeah.
I'm on a temporary hold because I had a foot problem. I had to have a little procedure on my foot, so I can't walk on it all the way yet. But
Yeah.
as soon as the stitches come out and I'm healed, I'm back.
Yeah.
But I can't work out right now because of my leg. Okay, that means I'm going to focus more on nutrition. I dial in on nutrition. Um, but it all makes a difference. It all plays a
Yeah.
role. There's so many things that can play a role, but pick the big things first. I think that's a cool
Yeah.
lesson. Yeah.
Lowell, what makes you such a positive person? I think that's like the biggest attribute that I noticed about you almost immediately. It's like you're always happy and
Yeah.
cheery. You always seem to be very positive, even when things are difficult.
I honestly just think it's how I'm wired. I think I've been this way my whole life. Um, I could probably point to some different times. Um, I just think gratitude makes my life better. Um,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for everything I've gotten, and maybe some of that is privilege. Like I accept that I have a lot of privilege in life for a lot of different reasons. I grew up with two parents who loved me, and even if it was just one parent who loved me, that's privilege too. But I grew up in a loving family. I grew up with um, I grew up in an environment where I was safe, and so I got to just go play. I don't know. It's hard for me to pinpoint.
Yeah.
I will share one story though. I can pinpoint one story that truly made a difference, and it's sad at the same time. So I'm an educator. My first job was in Los Angeles, and I loved teaching there. LA is a really cool city in so many ways. But I lost a student. My first year, I lost a student. Um, I won't share his name just for privacy and all. But the student was murdered. Um, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it was devastating to me and to my students and to my community. And I went to his funeral, and his mom shared joy and gratitude at his funeral. He was 15 years old, and I was devastated. And I was just his teacher in third period chemistry class. His mom shared joy, and she shared that she was so grateful that she got 15 years with her son who brought a smile to her every day. And that lesson to me was about accepting and having gratitude for the things you have. And
Yeah.
I lost my dad a year later, and I so needed, and I was only 26. I lost my dad at 26 to a sudden, um, it was really sudden. And if honestly, I know we're on a little bit of a tangent here, but if I
It's
hadn't
all
had
good.
that lesson from her, from the mom, I don't know how I would have gone through losing my dad. And so positive has always been, I've always been, I always smile. I love smiling. Smiling is just a way to connect with human beings. I love that connection. But learning the lesson about you can be sad and grateful at the same time was such a big lesson for me. So now going through caretaking for my wife, there were days when we had a lot of tears because it was so tough, but I was still grateful that I got to be here with her. So I have just learned, for me, gratitude and positivity. I have moments that are not, that don't seem that way, but I always come back to it. Um,
Yeah.
I always come back to the positivity, and I always come back to the gratitude, because it just grounds me, it centers me, and it allows me to truly appreciate what I've got. And I don't know, I've always been that way, I think, but I definitely have some moments that have impacted me. And that the mother of the student I lost, I have never forgotten. That was 31 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. Or 30 years ago, I've never forgotten it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, perspective is so important, right? I think we could
Yeah.
pretty much look at everything from the like glass half full versus glass half empty type of perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and sometimes it's easier said than done, for sure. And I think there's
Absolutely.
even when we talk about like nutrition and fitness, we're not perfect. We're also not perfect with this
Yep.
stuff, right?
Yep. Yep.
But reminding of
Yeah.
ourselves of that, I think, is really important because I agree with you, Lowell. I think um, I would consider myself a pretty positive person too. I think I've just
Yeah.
always been that way, kind of wired that way. I think
Yep.
sometimes we tend to not acknowledge the fact that part of our personality and part of who we are is kind of just the way we're born too, which is an important
Yes.
thing to
Yes.
consider. But I think it's also really important to understand that we have agency and um, we have the ability to choose how we perceive and react to things as well. Um,
Yeah.
I was just actually I was working on a video that I'm going to release in like a week or two, and usually all my stuff is about nutrition and fitness, and this one's about parenting,
Mhm.
which is something I now that I'm a dad, I love being a dad. And it was a video of this
Yeah.
guy. I understand his perspective, but he was essentially saying that there's no such thing as a happy dad, and his perspective is that like being a provider, being a caretaker, being all these things is really difficult and it's really stressful. So it's hard to be truly happy because you have all of these things that are weighing on you and you're always worrying about certain things. So I understand the perspective, but I think it's a flawed
Mhm.
way of thinking. It's like the way that I think about it is like I first off, I wouldn't want my life to be any other way. Even though it's
Yeah.
difficult, like I choose these things intentionally. Like I want to be a dad.
Yeah.
I want to be
Yeah.
a caretaker. I want to be a provider. So even though it's hard, I'm intentionally choosing for those things that are hard.
Yep.
And just because they're hard and they're stressful doesn't mean that I can't be happy throughout it as well, right? Like I would say that I intentionally choose to be happy and grateful every single day because you
Yes.
could be in the same exact circumstance and just complain about everything and be like, this is so difficult and business isn't going the way that I want it to, and I'm having this stressful thing going on with my family. It's like, man, life could always be way worse than what it actually is.
You know, I've heard a phrase that if we all wrote down our problems, if we were in a circle with 100 people and we all wrote down our problems and threw them in the center, we would run to get our own problems back, because there are other people in the world that have problems that are bigger than
Yeah.
ours. Maybe one more little story here. I've got a former student who I'm really good friends with now, um, who was in the U.S. Army in Iraq, and he suffered sniper fire, and he's now a paraplegic and in a
Hmm.
wheelchair. And I've had 5 knee surgeries and an ankle surgery, and so he knows I have knee problems. And I told him one day, he came to visit me in Thailand, and when I was working there, and we're just sitting in the hotel lobby where he was staying, just talking. I said, look, I don't like to complain about my knees. I'm having surgery in a couple months, but I don't want to complain about it. And he said, "Don't worry. We all have our own, but we all have our own battles. We all have our own hills to climb." He's like, "You can complain about your knees because that's your issue."
Yeah.
And it was just really, he was really. I find him really inspiring because he doesn't let his obstacles get in his way. He was encouraging me to not worry about my obstacles, complain about them, but then get over them. Work to get around them. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it is okay to vent. It's human. Vent once in a while,
Yeah.
but turn that venting into um, 5 or 10 minutes. Have a pity party for yourself, and then get on with it, and then get that smile back on, and get after it, and find joy in the getting after it. I don't know. Some of these things sound cliche, but they work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I don't even like the term cliche in many ways
Yeah.
because I feel like it's used to discredit things that can be very helpful, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds cliche, but it's true. Well, oh, there we go. It's true.
So
Yeah.
it's true. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
I guess people say it's cliche because it's like we know it's true, but sometimes it's easier said than done. Maybe sometimes
Yeah.
it's overused or like used as a
Sure.
band-aid for people's problems. Like things are complex, but at the end of the day, it does come down to gratitude, being thankful for
Yeah.
things, being positive. Like it does
Yeah.
come down to that. Getting there can be difficult, right?
Yeah.
I think it's similar to how we talk about when people are like, calories in, calories out. It's not that simple. It's like, well, in many ways, like, yeah, it is that simple. Are there a
Sure.
ton of variables that influence both sides of that equation that complicate things?
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, it
Yeah.
does boil down to that, you know?
Yeah. Simple but not easy is maybe there,
Yeah.
right? It's a
Yeah.
simple concept, but it might not be easy to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lowell, to wrap this up, a cliche question.
Sure. Sure. I'll take it.
um, yeah. For somebody who's struggling with their health and fitness, man, struggling with consistency,
Yeah.
struggling with implementing all these things, and really wants to make a change, what would you say that you think would be really impactful for them?
I could probably talk a long time about this. I think several ideas come to mind, but first is don't ever give up on yourself. You
Mm,
have a bad day, get back to it. Have a bad month, get back to it. Have a bad year, get back to it. Never give up. Never give up on yourself, and always keep trying to show up for yourself. And what that means is different for different people. What does showing up for yourself mean is different for different people. But truly, always try to continue to show up for yourself. And I think finding what you love or what you will learn to love in terms of like activity and exercising and training, finding things you love to do, it's going to be a lot easier to handle than things you don't love that you're just tolerating. The same goes for food. Find a a method of eating, or find things you will enjoy eating that will fit within a healthier range of food options. Um, Consider ways to improve your knowledge base, whether it's finding influencers, for lack of a better word, who are real, who share real evidence based practices. Find friends who want to work out with you. I think a lot of the things we've talked about, find a coaching program. Um, I know coaching programs cost money, and not all of us have access to funds. Um, I jumped in with the 21-day challenge. It was $97 when in October of a year ago. It was a great entry point into a world that I didn't know much about. I guess there are so many answers to the question for somebody
yeah.
who's struggling, but I think it really is just don't ever give up. Um,
Yeah.
keep working on it, and believe in yourself, believe in your ability to do hard things. Um,
Mm,
and find ways to empower yourself. And maybe something we haven't talked about much is celebrate the successes you have.
mm,
Um, and celebrate doesn't mean I, I come back in my time, my younger years. Celebrate might have meant grab a cupcake, you know,
yeah.
grab a bag of cookies. Celebrate doesn't have to be I'm going to have a bag of cookies. Celebrate can be, man, I just chose to have a healthy meal. That was awesome. Way to go. That's a celebration. Find
Yeah.
find ways to celebrate the steps along the way. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a complex question. There's so many things a person can do. And maybe even don't beat yourself up when you have a problem, when you make a mistake. Rather than rather than thinking, oh, I just blew that breakfast, think, okay, why did it happen? And how can I not do it again? Or how can I improve next time? Think of it as a learning opportunity. There's so many things that you can think about in terms of things I can do for myself.
Yeah.
Moving away from dichotomous thinking, moving towards growth mindset, moving towards learning, reflecting on your practices. Dr. Joey, one of the things you've done in my mind that is a real positive is you are willing to understand the human aspect of complex problems. So people who are overweight, it's not because they're lazy. It's not because they're making bad moral choices. You're not judgmental, yet you believe that there is some ownership of where a person is, because if you can't, if it's not, maybe some of it is genetics.
Sure.
Okay, but it can't be 100% genetics, because if I say it's
Right.
100% genetics, I may as well not do anything. But I want to
Yep.
have some power to change myself. So let's
Yep.
look at this from a complex perspective. What do I have the power to change for myself? I want to give myself the power. And if I
Yeah.
blame it on other things, I don't have the power to change those things. So I'm going to change the things I can change. And I think
Yeah.
that that can all be done from a human perspective that respects the humanity of us and doesn't blame. It's not about blaming, it's about accepting that I can make some changes to my world that will improve me. And I
Yeah.
don't know, I think I gave you a rambling answer that talked about a lot of different things, but they all seem relevant to me. They're all important
Yeah.
to me in my journey. Um,
Yeah. No, those are great points, man. Even like, celebrating the small wins comes down to positivity at the
yeah,
end of the day, right? Being positive about the
yeah.
things that you're doing. Understanding things are going to be hard. Like, I also want to highlight this, like, it's going to be hard. Change is hard, right?
Yeah,
Hard is not bad. Hard in many
right.
ways is good, right? And it's hard, but doesn't mean you have to be perfect, and you can be compassionate, but embrace difficulty. Like, this is one thing, a skill that I think I have, Lowell, that I credit for a lot of the quote unquote success that I've had in my life so far,
Mhm.
is like I am always open to embracing hard things. Like,
Yeah,
hearing that something is hard does not scare me at all, and it doesn't push me away from it at all. And I think part of it is because throughout my life I've been able to prove to myself that I can do hard things. And over time it becomes easier because, like, oh, I have, this built up proof that I there are things that have been difficult and I have been able to do them. But the truth is, like,
yeah,
everything in life is hard. And hard is
yeah,
relative too, right? I remember always
yeah,
thinking, people would ask me, man, like, you did a PhD, that's really hard. And I'm like, I don't think it's any harder than going to work every day 9 to 5. Like,
yeah,
it's hard in a different way, Like,
yeah,
at the end of the day in life, anything that you're going to dedicate yourself to is going to be hard, and that's not a bad thing at all. And even the last thing you mentioned of having agency over your behaviors and taking ownership, and, like, is there a genetic component? Yes, there's certainly a genetic component. Um, but if you want to make a change, like, if you want to be a certain way that's different than the way you are now, you like you have to believe that that change is possible, right? Because
yeah,
if you believe it's
yeah,
not possible, that it's completely outside of your control, well, then it's not going to happen. There has to be an inkling of
yep,
belief that you have ownership over the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. That's like step
yeah,
one, right? Because if you truly don't
yeah,
believe that you can do
yeah,
something, it's like it's not going to happen, right? A very ridiculous example. Um, I don't believe I can just levitate and fly, right? Obviously, a very dumb example because I don't have any proof that I can do that. But if I don't believe I
right,
can do it, it's definitely never going to happen, right? If I have
yeah,
an inkling of belief that it can happen, at least I'm going to be able to try to make it happen, right? Anyways,
mhm.
I'm rambling on too, Lowell.
Rambling is fun though, right? I
Yeah,
guess I'm a rambler for sure. I could talk for hours.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, my man, I would love to keep this going, but I do have to get off because we have a call here in a couple of minutes. But I just want to say, Lowell, that I appreciate your time a ton, man. This was really fun. It went in a
yeah,
direction that I didn't think it was going to go, but that's typically
yeah,
why I enjoy doing these things the most. Any final words you
absolutely.
want to share?
I just gratitude. I'm going to come back to gratitude. I'm grateful that I found Fit for Life, and I know this. This just doesn't have to be an advertisement, but I'm happy to be that. I love what I found with Fit for Life, but just gratitude for the people around me, gratitude for life, gratitude for finding a community that cares about me and that wants me to be better and that supports me getting better. and finding joy in everything I do. Yeah,
Oh
this was
man,
a ton of fun.
gonna make
I
me
love it.
gonna make me tear up, Lowell.
All
jokes
good.
jokes aside, appreciate your time, Lowell. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
For those of you guys listening, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you think it would be helpful for somebody in your life, feel free to share it with them. It would mean the world to me too. And I'll catch you on next week's episode. Bye.